The fan community has long been stirred by a question. Who or what is the Dragon of Mars, imprisoned within the labyrinth of night on the Red Planet? And although for a long time, various sources have indicated that a fragment of the Citan Void Dragon resides on Mars, playing a key role in the rise of the tech priests, a misconception persists that it had no influence, and that its presence on the main forge world of the Imperium is nothing more than unconfirmed rumor. It's time to settle the matter of the Dragon of Mars and the origins of the Adeptus Mechanicus' faith, revealing the truth, however inconvenient it may be. The initial source, providing sinister clues regarding the machine god, is found within the 3rd edition Necron Codex. The article, Secrets of the Necrons, first stated, the Mechanicus worshipped their deity long before the Emperor arrived.
And finally, there is the machine god itself, worshipped by the Adeptus Mechanicus. In the theology of the Imperium, the Omnissiah is merely one aspect of the God Emperor. This dogma is so deeply ingrained in the minds of all who are familiar with it that it goes entirely without question. And yet, the Mechanicus' most ancient records explicitly state that the machine god was already revered on Mars, long before the Emperor had even proclaimed his dominion on Terra. These records tell of the incredible knowledge humanity acquired during the golden age of technology, knowledge which ultimately brought about humanity's downfall into the devastating age of strife. The mere existence of such heresy, nestled within the very heart of the Imperium itself, is utterly monstrous. However, what remains concealed could prove to be far more terrifying.
Furthermore, in the short story, The Sleeping God's Vision, Abaddon the Despoiler receives curious information from the demon Hrangor about what lies on Mars. Of course, it could be argued that demons are perpetual liars. However, even for a sorcerer as mighty as Zoroastrian, it is entirely possible to compel a demon of chaos to speak the truth. Moreover, the veracity of Hrangor's words was confirmed by information from other sources.
Under Terra's shadow, beneath the misty mountains, a new kind of death slumbers. Humans are sacrificed, but their precious souls are not devoured. They are cast aside and left to drift. Many demons gather for this feast, much like scavengers, eager to relish the delicious scraps from a rich table. Zoroastrian then turned to Abaddon, stating, Mars lies within Terra's shadow, and those mountains of mist are the Noctis Labyrinthus, if our auguries are correct. Zoroastrian then turned to Abaddon, stating, Mars lies within Terra's shadow, and those mountains of gaze on the Noctis Labyrinthus, if our auguries are correct. Show us what lies on Mars. The demon's form wavered, blurring, and in its stead, a crimson mirror shimmered into existence. The traitor space marines observed a cavernous basalt chamber, its perimeter adorned with towering silvery machines stretching high into the oppressive gloom. Upon the floor stood a sarcophagus crafted from adamantium and gold. From each machine in turn, a beam of incredible energy arced down into the sarcophagus. Beyond the quiet confines of the summoning, the Black Legion Space Marines heard a sound that was exceptionally rare in this place, the laughter of Abaddon.
Finally, in The Interrogation of Adept Kortosvan, the unfortunate tech adept recounted his shocking discovery within an otherworldly lair.
Kortosvan trembled and shuddered as the memories vividly passed before his very eyes. I beheld the master of this ominous place, and in the very instant my gaze fell upon it, I understood that I was utterly doomed, not to succumb to death, but rather to fully grasp the profound depths of the enigmatic mysteries that inexorably surround my being. The machine god, do you comprehend? It is omnipresent. It fed on us. I witnessed my comrades from the Telmax expedition being sacrificed to the machines, their very essence consumed. Their bodies and souls were dismantled into their constituent parts and then offered to the machine god. I don't know why I was sent back to the normal world, I truly don't. And now, I understand that everything I once believed in is nothing but a lie. The machine god does not love us, and it does not need our worship. We are but its playthings, and I shall not be tainted by such a profound evil.
Kortosvan realized that the machine god was kin to the otherworldly being, as it too commanded machines, though not on the vast scale the adept had personally witnessed.
I was the only one who survived, yet upon awakening, I discovered I had been cast out from the Emperor's light. I saw scenes of complete chaos, living machine obelisks that shot streams of lightning into the heavens. A horizon that stretched endlessly upwards and all around. A surface that encompassed an enormous red sun, yet it was so incredibly close, it felt as if one could simply reach out and touch it. Like a malevolent red eye, the sun hung in the solid heavens, and the machines ravenously fed on its endless energy, much like ghastly parasites would.
Shortly before the release of the 3rd edition Necron Codex, background material for Battlefleet Gothic described the Martian Gambit, an attempt by 5 Necron ships to break through to Mars.
Be that as it may, the preparations were concluded in the 998th year of the 41st millennium, when 5 Necron shrouds initiated a desperate suicidal assault directly on the planet Mars. It is unknown why the Necrons carried out this precision strike. Following extensive discussions about the incident, the Adeptus Mechanicus, urged on by the complete Skitarii Legion, designated the region surrounding the Noctis Labyrinthus as an exclusion zone.
With the release of the Necron Codex, a frightening explanation for this raid emerged. The Necrons made an attempt to liberate the fragment of the Void Dragon. A few years later, McNeill wrote Mechanicum for the Horus Heresy cycle. It narrates that the dragon once wreaked havoc on ancient Terra, prior to its defeat by the Emperor and its subsequent incarceration on Mars during the epoch preceding the Age of Strife. The sleeping dragon influenced the inhabitants of Mars through their dreams, giving them knowledge and leading to the formation of the Mechanicum. The book contains several clues suggesting that the Dragon of Mars is the Cetan Mogul Rod. First, the dragon once lived among the stars. Second, one of the dragon's guardians, Semyon, asks Dahlia if other stars were devoured by some beings, which could hint at the Cetan and their star-consuming tendencies. Third, Dahlia herself, another guardian, recognizes the Dragon of Mars as an incredibly ancient, powerful, and exotic life form that created entire civilizations and then destroyed them on a whim. Fourth, the dragon's memories indicate it once engaged in war with its own kind, leading to its weakening and subsequent flight to Terra. Later in the war in heaven, the Cetan fought amongst themselves, devouring the weak. This could also point to the Necron rebellion against the star gods. Fifth, the dragon is described as having a chest that shone with the light of the stars it had consumed, again pointing to the star-devouring Ingir. And sixth, during its battle with the Emperor, the dragon's skin was described as silvery, harder than steel, yet rippling like liquid mercury when struck with sufficient force. By all accounts, this is necrodermis, the Cetan's body material. A fairly clear picture had formed, but when the 5th edition was released, the lore was partially rewritten, and a lot of material was called into question. Nevertheless, much of the Cetan background from the 3rd edition has been affirmed by more recent works over the years. The key revision is that various episodes now feature mere shards, rather than fully intact star gods. Regarding the Void Dragon, the fact that a fragment of it resides on Mars was definitively confirmed in Ben Counter's book, World Engine. Barsaida, which the Imperium managed to stop at the cost of an entire Space Marine chapter's life, was heading to Mars at the will of its master, Hekiroth, who intended to awaken the fragment of the Void Dragon on the Red Planet.
As the sergeant neared the enigmatic structure, light sparked at the base of its wall, and from these, figures began to materialize in the air, much like a holographic projection. Faraji realized that the glowing spheres, along with the Necron hieroglyphs revolving around them, collectively represented a star system. A vivid yellow sphere at the absolute center symbolized the sun, while a multitude of colorful planets revolved in orbit around it, each adorned with unique hieroglyphs that apparently unveiled the world's designation. The scouts dispersed throughout the hall, thoroughly checking every nook and cranny for any lurking enemies. Besides the structure in the center, there was nothing else in the room, and Faraji concluded that it had been empty for a very long time. Brother Kazan stepped into the projection, and as the lights flickered across him, the sergeant realized the images were being cast from the eyes of the Necron statues. "Brothers, let's conduct a rapid analysis," said Faraji. "What do you see?" "Definitely not the warp system," Nilhar stated with conviction. "It has 11 planets, and no gas giants of that size." "Then what is it?" "I don't recall encountering anything quite like this in the Battle Chronicles," Palau remarked with a shrug. "No, this has nothing to do with our chapter's history," Kazan retorted, observing the worlds as they slowly drifted towards him. "This is definitely something from the sacred book." Along the room's perimeter, a bifurcated red line curved, forming an overhead route that led directly to the holographic system at its center. It was the course of a starship. The sacred book? Samal questioned, raising an eyebrow. 9 planets, the sergeant began, a star in the middle stage of its evolution. 4 gas giants and then an icy rocky mass that, at one edge, scarcely warrants being called a planet, appearing almost insignificant. A scorched barren rock wall on the far side, then the toxic poisonous sphere beyond that, and finally, a world that every human being would instantly recognize. Don't you recognize it, brothers? Nilhar, with a keen observation, deduced, it's the Sol system. The Sol system, Faraji confirmed. The sergeant then approached the 3rd planet from the sun. It appeared quite unfamiliar, completely blue and green, a strange composition of land masses and vast oceans. However, were you to drain its oceans, render its land charred and riddled with scars, and then superimpose upon it a massive continent-sized structure resembling a colossal blister, it would instantly strike you as astonishingly recognizable. This is Terra, Faraji nodded, our Earth. And this is Mars. The astral knight then pointed to the rust-red sphere of the 4th planet. In the illustration, it at least looked more like its current self. The only things missing were the colossal forges situated near Olympus Mons, and the vast orbital docks designed for the solar battle fleet. The starship spiraled toward the heart of the star system and stopped at the red planet, which was immediately surrounded by blooming hieroglyphs. They're flying to Mars, Kazan exclaimed, horrified. A world engine? Samal questioned, utterly bewildered. What else could it be? Faraji questioned. This is the tomb of the lords of Barcida. Here, they inscribed their fated purpose, to transport the world engine all the way to Mars. Do you think you are the master of Barcida? Turakan said defiantly. It is the one that controls you. It cannot be diverted from its path. What will then become of you when it brings you to your destination? Do you genuinely believe that what lies on Mars will welcome you as some sort of liberator? It will tear you to shreds, Hekarot of the Nephrek dynasty, you who failed to honor it, and who relentlessly continues to deceive its own kind. It will utterly annihilate you. Hekarot unleashed yet another volley of necrodermis blades from his chest, severing Turakan's 2nd arm, which then plummeted into the mud with a resounding splash. With servos whining, Turakan's legs gave way, and he collapsed into the riverbed. Can you hear me, humans? Turakan proclaimed with a booming voice. Barcida will fulfill its destiny. Your red planet will fall. Your blue planet will fall. Your race shall perish when my dynasty awakens the Hekarot then, with chilling precision, manifested a colossal necrodermis blade around his hand, and without a moment's hesitation, plunged its lethal tip deep into Turakan's neck. The vocal speakers abruptly fell silent, the head detached completely, plunging into the sludge and vanishing into its putrid depths.
So, what can we conclude? The Dragon of Mars is a powerful fragment of the Void Dragon that managed to escape capture by the rebellious Necrons, but was weakened and forced to feed on the life energy of mortals on ancient Terra. The Emperor defeated it, and, before the Age of Strife, imprisoned it on Mars within the Labyrinth of Night, possibly built by the Necrons as a Citan Shard's prison. The fragment of Citan Mogulrod, even during the Dark Age of technology, most likely influenced humans, and bestowed upon them various marvels, just as it did in subsequent eras. During the Age of Strife, under the influence of the fragment of the Void Dragon, the religion of the Tech Priests formed on Mars. It is quite possible that its very inception was orchestrated by the Emperor from the earliest moments. Millennia later, the Necrons have persistently attempted to infiltrate Mars, aiming to liberate the Mogulrod Shard. Their malevolent designs for this artifact undoubtedly portend grave consequences for all of humanity.